Hello there, Dr. Karen Can. Welcome to another edition of the Spiritual Medicine Digest. And this week's message is actually fascinating and interesting, or at least I think it is, and so I hope you do too. I have been experiencing some what I call ascension swelling. Now, this was very, very intense a few years ago. I remember when I first came onto the telesummit scene, was doing a lot of energy healing and working with a lot of people. It was like the ascension energies were really ramping up at that point. I ended up gaining about 30 pounds for someone who's 5'4" and originally about 117 pounds. That was a lot of weight. And the interesting thing is to me, when I was asking Source about that, like, what's this about? It was water. And I was like, okay, so I'm not changing my diet or exercise or anything like that. Maybe it's menopause, which generally is visceral fat in the middle of the belly. So that's not the good stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's not where we want fat to be. So that is considered dangerous fat. So I was testing when I was speaking with Source that it was water, not visceral fat. But I'm not really sure at that time that my husband really believed me. He's like, do more sit-ups, and go do CrossFit. So but I thought, okay, I don't understand. Like, why is there so much water, right? And so I didn't know quite the right question to ask back then. So here I was struggling with this water thing. And I know when I went on a very strict, very, very clean diet with lower calories, specifically, this is the HCG diet from Des Bio, I did really, really well and released a lot of that weight. But yet, the minute I started eating, coconut oil or nuts or eggs or something other than what was on the super super clean and simple diet, I started gaining the weight back. And so I thought to myself, I really got to check in to see what this weight is about, because maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's not water, maybe it really is fat. And so I did go for a bioimpedance test, and I did go for a DEXA scan at the CrossFit gym just to see what was going on. And what was fascinating was the fat percentage. The doctor said, well, I'm actually pretty happy with you. Your fat percentage is great. You don't have a lot of visceral fat. In fact, you have less than 1 pound, and that's really excellent. And I said, I looked at my belly and I said, what about all this? Right? And he says, well, it's probably, subcutaneous fat. And I said, can you differentiate between lean muscle and water? And he says, no, our equipment can't really do that. We just know it's not fat. We can differentiate bone, we can differentiate, fat, and we can differentiate lean mass, but we can't differentiate between organs, fluid, all that, muscle. We can't differentiate all that. So I thought, okay. But at least I felt like, okay, I'm not crazy. So I said, okay, it is water. But then I still didn't know how to get rid of it, because at that point I wanted to get rid of it. And it wasn't until I, basically swelled up so badly that my clothes were like, so tight, like my jackets were tight. Even in the shoulder and neck area, I'm like, really? You think I'm getting fat in the neck? Really? So I know to the untrained eye, it would just be like, wow, Karen's really gaining weight. But for those of us that are highly sensitive souls who going through this ascension process, we kind of get it. Okay, there's a lot of fluid there. But this is not just everyday fluid, because even some of the experts that I talked about, that knew stuff about water and things like that, the automatic assumption was, oh, you're really toxic, so that's why you're swelling. And I'm like, no, that's not the message I'm getting from Source. That's not it, right? Like, people did not understand it. And they just assumed, oh, it's edema. I'm like, it's not edema. Okay, edema is bulk water. Okay, and I'm a medical doctor, right? So I know what edema is. I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. It's not frickin' edema, okay? But it was really hard to convince, and it wasn't until there were maybe a handful of people who actually believed me. Okay, I mean, I'm not talking about my students. I'm talking about, other experts actually believe me. One was Richard Fluke, actually. So yay for Richard. So him and I, kind of trying to figure some of this stuff out, and he just kind of took what I, got from source, and felt it within him, and he said, yeah, this is really, really interesting. So in further investigation, I did ask source, why is it with Ascension upgrades that we can just gain all this fluid all of a sudden? What is that about? And mostly it was about codes. So light codes, information, source codes was the most common thing. So it's like, okay, so source codes, it's a good thing. Yes, it is. Okay. So what I discovered was the people that were incarnated as humans but had light beings as their past lives, if you will, or alternate realities, that they would tend to seem to gain that swelling faster than the other people, or even like much more so. Some other star seed types, like the people that were embodied star seeds in other timelines, so they had a body, they didn't seem to swell. But those that were light beings in other timelines, now in a human body, they were the ones that swelled. And I was one of them because one of my souls is a light being star. And so I said, okay, that's really interesting. So I'm like, okay, this is not really working for my physical body. And it wasn't just about like how big I looked or that my clothes didn't, feel good on me or whatever, or that I was kind of like a little bit not as coordinated with my muscles, kind of swollen as well. It was just really trying to figure out what was going on. And if it wasn't good for my physical body to be in this state, what else was there? Okay, so codes are good, high light is good. I understand that high vibrational light being star seeds, once every ascension hits, they go right, and they get so much information. They go up, up, up in their light and their vibration so quickly. Yes, they're swelling, and that information is being codes, if you will, held in the water. So I was like, okay, so how do we figure out how to navigate this so that we don't have to swell, okay, in our physical bodies, but be able to ascend and have all these codes somehow, elevate our consciousness and all that kind of stuff without our physical bodies kind of suffering the consequences of it. So it was really interesting because I somehow figured out, thanks to, multiple little tips here and there, signs and synchronicities, and some friends that helped me out with various parts of this, I was able to put together a theory, if you will, or formula. So I began doing a little bit of experimentation. I thought to myself, I wonder if, there's processing that's required, like some sort of human processing of these codes. And indeed there was. And there was a certain speed of processing. The faster one could process these source codes, the less likely that information was going to be held in this water. Now, when it's held in the water in the body, I call that easy water, from Gerald Pollack's book, The Fourth Phase of Water. Easy water is crystalline water as opposed to bulk water. Bulk water is edema. Okay, bulk water is non-crystallized, very disorganized water molecules, and they don't really have a function, but if you have too much of that, you definitely want to pee it out, you know what I mean? It's not very useful. Crystallized water, on the other hand, holds frequency, holds energy, holds information, holds these codes. So here we were as light being star seeds, creating more and more of this easy water, this crystalline water in our bodies, but yet having difficulty releasing it from our bodies as well. So I discovered that if we can process this crystalline water, process those codes faster, that we wouldn't hold as much as water in our bodies, and that energy and information can be converted in a form that doesn't require all that water for its storage, and then we could convert that easy water to bulk water and pee it out, poop it out, sweat it out, all the different ways that we can do this as a human. And so I went to start figuring out some Topocan healing ways of creating what we call positive morphic fields. This is Rupert Sheldrake, PhD, talks about morphogenic fields or morphogenetic fields. And so this is a version of that there's I'm creating a blueprint, if you will, for those of us humans that do swell with Ascension upgrades, to download the ability to process these codes faster so that they don't build up all this water. And I remember the very first time I kind of figured this out, and I was converting easy water into bulk water, converting the energy, and having it stored, the information stored elsewhere rather than as this humongous, water container that that I literally almost overnight, like the clothes started fitting better. And I remember I had two massage therapists talk to me or work with me that week. And one did medicupping, the other did lymphatic massage. And the medicupping person says, "Wow, you've really improved since last time. I don't remember ever being able to do this much medicupping, this to this high amount of suction on you before." And I said, "Well, that's really interesting." So I went to the lymphatic specialist. Lymphatic specialist said, "Wow, your lymph is moving the best it's ever been since I've, been working with you." And so they were two outside people, not really understanding what I was doing at all, energy healing wise, but really confirmed to me, okay, something is happening. Not just, okay, my clothes suddenly getting like looser, right? Something is happening. So then the other piece came this year. When I started last year, last year, so 2019, I decided to do a competition in figure skating, and it was kind of a stretch in terms of like all the things I had planned last fall. I had the Omega Institute. I mean, there was all these different things that I had planned. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this figure skating event. I'm going to be very ambitious and do like 3 different disciplines. I'm going to do singles, I'm going to do pairs, I'm going to do ice dance, right? And I was looking at myself in pictures and doing, the skating and realizing, wow, I'm still pretty heavy. So this is challenging. And my husband, also skating partner, said, "Look, is there any way you can lose weight? Because it's a little hard to lift you." Okay. And I said, okay, let's see what we can do. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that HCG diet again, because I know it works, and I'm just going to do that during the training for the competition. Now, normally you would never do that first time, right? But this was like 5th time doing it. So I was like, I'm just going to try. It's going to be an experiment. I do a lot of experiments. So I, went on that diet during, the training for that event, including up until the actual competition, and released about 13 pounds or so, and appreciably, shifted what my body looked like and felt like, and I could skate a lot easier, could jump higher, get the lifts up, because the weight was less, and we won, multiple medals, so we did really, really well. Of course, my skating costumes were a little loose after that, but and then I decided, well, you know what? It's a little tricky to stay on that diet. It's not really safe necessarily to stay on it all the time. So I thought, well, I'm gonna just, I was guided to pick up Dr. Kellyanne's Bone Broth Diet book, and I went to her website and realized she had 2 other books that she had written. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know about these. So I went and got the 10-day belly slim down, and then I got the cleanse and reset, and really read through them, and I thought, I love this idea. I can actually do like intermittent fasting as well as do this bone broth kind of diet, and it could be really, really easy and is very safe. So I went ahead and did that and ended up, releasing more weight. But what's really interesting, it wasn't the amount of weight so much, but that by the time I went on a LifeWave cruise, and by the time January came around 2020, my body looked significantly different, so my clothes are feeling really, really different. And what I realized then, when I finally asked Source, I said, wait a second. So I am able to do even heavy exercise with less food, eating more concentrated times, but less food. And I don't understand, like, my body seems to be processing all these ascension codes really well. Like, what's going on, right? And so I finally decided I'm just going to ask God, ask Source, exactly how many calories do I actually need to be fully, functional, healthy, great metabolism. I don't want my metabolism slowed, okay? Great metabolism, and be able to process all this information, all these codes, these source codes with ease and speed, right? And the answer really shocked me. The answer was 1,300 calories. And I thought, I can't tell people publicly. They're going to think I'm anorexic. You know what I mean? I love food. So I was like, okay, this is very interesting. So I thought, okay, I'm going to experiment again and see how that goes. So since then, I thought, okay, well, my friend Kathy Hilmar, who many of you know, who have been following me, she's a very, very good friend of mine. And she one day, a while back, she asked me, I would like you to test, if you don't mind, how breatharian I am. I'm like, what the heck is that? And she says, well, breatharians can just take energy from 0 point directly. They don't actually have to eat as much for their energetic expenditure. And I'm like, that is so interesting. So at the time, a while back, I checked her. She was like 30% breatharian, which blew me away. I thought, oh my gosh, that is incredible. So, fast forward to 2020, I asked myself how breatharian I was. And I was about 30-something%. And I was like, wow, I've made it, to where Kathy was, years ago. And then I checked her and she was 70-something%. And I'm like, whoa, how did she get 70-something% breatharian? She just told me that she didn't really eat that much, right? And she's just like, she's good. And I thought, okay, well, and so I asked Source, I said, what's the difference? Like, why is she 70%? I'm 30. And apparently there is a blueprint for that. There is a morphogenic field, which allows you as a human to be able to process energy directly from the 0 point field. Sort of like you're like a plant, getting sunlight, okay? Sort of like that, where you're able to just process energy without going through the food intermediary. And I was like, whoa, that is crazy. I said, do I have that blueprint? And the answer was no. So it's like, okay, give it to me. Am I allowed to have it? Yes. All right. So I downloaded that blueprint. And, but I said, I'm just doing experiments on myself because I'm not going to tell anybody they should do that necessarily, okay? Because that may or may not be safe. They have to check with their doctor. So I was doing that and realizing that when I ate this way, so lower calorie, and drank a lot of water, and I do a lot of bone broth instead of eating food otherwise. And of course, I have some support for the whole hunger thing. I have energy enhancer, phototherapy patches, SP6, which is for cravings, but I just notice it just helps me with keeping that blood sugar even, and I don't really need to eat as much. What I noticed was that water did not accumulate. Okay, now certain Ascension upgrades, very intense ones, I would feel it. Like last week, I did feel it a couple of times. I did gain some water weight. I didn't measure it on the scale, but I could tell because my knee was swollen and, belly was swollen a little bit. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And at that point, I was actually proxying for another. One time was the universe. I was doing some healing for the universe automatically. And the other time, what was it? All of humanity? No. Oh, Australia. That's right. I was doing Australia. Okay. But once I figured that out, which didn't take me too long, I was able to release quite a bit of that information in the form of water. So by eating less, doing intermittent fasting, hydrating really well, bone broth dieting, what I've noticed is that I am much more tolerant to the whole Ascension swelling thing. So what happens is the Ascension codes come in, it produces easy water, but I'm able to process all that information and energy much faster because I don't have a ton of food in my belly and my energy going to trying to digest the food, which is much, much slower because I don't actually need the energy from the food anymore because I'm more breatharian, if you will. Okay, I love food, don't get me wrong. So I'm more breatharian. I'm just explaining my own personal, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just sharing with you what happened to me. So I'm able to process energy faster so I don't swell as much as I used to. And let me tell you, I swelled a lot. And the really cool thing is when I did do the CrossFit gym and way back when and checked, even though I was in the full throttle throngs of being really poofy, okay, that was my word for fat, poofy, it was less than a pound of visceral fat. So I knew that I wasn't going nuts, right? There was something really to this whole easy water thing, this whole, codes, coming in the form of water. So now I understand from my own body that I can process these codes faster if I don't eat as much and not as often. That is not necessarily telling you that that's what you should do, because I think you need to experiment, you need to be safe, you need to make sure, like, like for example, when I do eat, I eat really, really well, right? So I eat whole foods and organic, and I don't do GMO foods, and you know what I mean? I drink structured water. I mean, there's all these things that I do. And what's really fascinating for this week, now I've caught you up from all those years of this whole water enigma, is that when my knee was swelling the other day, and I asked Source, well, okay, was there a way that I could avoid having this swelling? Because I knew that the swelling was a reaction to or as a result of information coming in, easy water being produced. And the answer was yes. There was a way that I could have prevented it, and the way was being in stillness connected to the 0 point for 9 or more percentage of the waking time. Now, 9% of the waking time doesn't maybe sound like much, but being connected to stillness while you're talking, walking, cooking, bathing, working, doing other things, it's a little bit of a challenge. It's not hard. It's just got to remember to be, you got to remember to be while you do. And so I had managed that week where I had the swelling about 8.3% of my waking time. And from what I understand from Source is that if I had managed 9%, then I probably wouldn't have had to swell. I would have been able to process that information much faster. So I figured, well, why not create a positive morphic field to help people with that? Help people with not so much stillness, because they have to be, voluntarily willing to connect, but helping them process this water easily. So I did more questioning, more Q&A, if you will, with Source. And what was really fascinating was I love the signs and synchronicities of, who I was already talking to, in those couple of weeks. And one was my guest on my radio show about You Are Your Mandala, Lifetime After Lifetime with Von Galt. And the way she explained things, it just really made sense to me. And so I thought, let me ask about water. And then I started I started reading more of my book, The Water Codes. And I'll post the link near this video so you can check out that book as well. And what it was saying was so in alignment with what Source was telling me. I got super excited reading this book, because I realized if I put all that information together from what Von Galt told me, what Source told me, from what the Water Codes book told me, it made total sense to me. And the bottom line is that this concept of mandala, and I have some behind me so you can see what it looks like. So this concept of mandala, like all versions of you in all timelines, you have your own pattern, you have your own mandala. So you're your mandala year after year, universe after universe, experience after experience. So what is it that connects all of that? Well, guess what? It's water. So when I was asking, so how do I ask this? The answer was the water that is your mandala. And I thought, okay, so if this is easy water, it's structured water. Okay, yeah, that's sort of like having crystals, right? But here is the big aha for this week. You can make easy water and crystal water in your body, which generally is considered very, very healthy. The more crystallized water that you have, the more information you can hold, and the healthier you are, the more energy that you can transfer and use and all this kind of stuff, right? So having structured water in your body is very, very good. Drinking structured water is very good. However, you can have easy water in your body that is not coherent. Now, this is a word that I've heard many, many times, but when I was reading the Water Codes book, it made sense to me. So I asked, and here is the Topican healing quality question. If you do muscle testing, you can ask about yourself. How good or optimized is the coherence of water that is my mandala? Okay, so we're talking about all timelines, right? So let me repeat that. How optimally coherent is all the water that is my mandala. Not that makes up my mandala, that is my mandala. So if you ask in this way in the universe will know what you mean, okay? And I was getting that it was a little over 70 or 80%. I can't remember the initial number, right? So I said, well, would it be for the highest frequency good for all timelines where I exist to have coherent water? And the answer was yes. So what happens is that with an ascension upgrade, my clairsentience, if you will, and yours probably as well, expands. When it expands, we sense more that may or may not be necessary, but we sense more of other people's stuff. And what happens is that information gets stored in the form of water. And in our case, EZ water. So our bodies can swell with this EZ water because it's crystalline. It's like a microchip, you know. It's like your quartz watch, you know. The reason they use it is because it's so precise in the time, and so there's so many things that use crystals, like crystal radio. Like there's so many things in our technology that uses crystals because it's that important, that it's that powerful as an information conduit. So I thought, well, gee, why not make the water that is our mandala more coherent? Why not create an automatic alignment activator, which is my name for a positive morphic field that ongoingly heals whatever it is you wish to heal? Why not make that for our mandala? And I got permission, yeah, to make it. So I made it. I created this automatic alignment activator that automatically optimizes the coherence of your water that is your mandala. So how do you connect to this? Well, first of all, you can actually say the directive, which I will in a moment. The second thing you can do is if you have one of my Ascension 3 jewelry pieces, it doesn't matter whether it's silicone or Swarovski crystal or paracord, it doesn't really matter. It has already been infused with that AAA, that automatic alignment activator. So all you need to say, hey, that mandala water thing, okay, download that to me. All right, so that's all you need to do. And second of all, so that's one positive morphic field automatic alignment activator that was created. So what you want to do if you do divine muscle testing is check how optimized is the coherence in your water that is your mandala first. Okay, get a percentage out of 100%. And then you want to track it over several days. Now, it's not, if you're at a 70, it's not 100% right away necessarily. So you might go 70% one day, and then it might be 80% a couple of days later, then it might be 90 a couple of days later, you know, then it might be, in my case, for example, 97%, and then the next day 98, and the next day 98.4, you know. So it's not necessarily, you know, a straight line in terms of the improvement in coherence. So that's one thing, okay, is measure it first, then do the Topican healing directive. And then the other thing you can do is chest check within your body right now, how coherent the water is in all your cells and get a percentage out of 100%. Okay, so let's do that first and I'll go to the next piece. So the directive you can use, and you can make up your own, right? You don't have to use exactly word for word what I do. The other thing you can do is play this video and just tell the universe, hey, that AAA, download that to me. Thank you so much. Okay. So it goes something like this. I now command an automatic alignment activator that automatically optimizes the water coherence that is in my mandala, or your mandala in this case, be downloaded and activated in all versions of me in the highest and best way, all directions of time, with ease, speed, and grace. Thank you. Okay. And then you get downloaded with that. So unless for whatever reason you're not allowed to have that because you need to know something first, you need to understand, then you can do some muscle testing and ask some questions, and then just retest on divine muscle testing whether or not that AAA is fully downloaded and activated in you. And if so, then recheck. You can recheck right away, but you can check the next day how optimally coherent is the water that is my mandala, right? And hopefully you will get a higher percentage. Okay, so we can make all the water in our bodies coherent. That is the difference between, for example, having water clusters, okay, that are in and of itself coherent with each other, but not all as a whole. So that'd be sort of like saying, well, gee, the water, when it's like got all this information, some of it's ours, some of it's not ours, some of it's from this timeline, that timeline, is sort of like a big bag of gems. Okay, you could have a bag of, it has rubies, emeralds, sapphires, diamonds, right? or whatever else, right? So you have this big bag of gems, and it's just sitting there as a bag of gems. Now, each individual gem is, you know, has high quality. It's crystal. It holds information. It is coherent in and among itself, right? But here's the thing. Think about a bag of gems, and then think about what if you took that bag of gems and you made a piece of jewelry like these mandalas, right? A little ruby here, symmetrical, sort of like a snowflake, right? Symmetrical, beautiful. So now you've made a pattern with these gems. That's the difference between having all the gems coherent within itself or coherent among all of the water. So if you think of each gem as a cluster of water molecules, the water molecules, when put into this coherent pattern, now make this beautiful mandala. So that's the best way I can explain it. The difference between a bag of gems. Now remember, it's still a bag of gems. I mean, it's still easy water, okay? But it's not easy water made into beautiful jewelry, right? And that's the latter is what we want. Now, what if it's not easy water? What if it's bulk water? What would the analogy be? Well, it would be like a lump of coal. You know, that a lump of coal is carbon. A diamond is carbon. Chemically, they're the same, but they look completely different, right? Just like water looks the same. Water looks the same, but one's crystal water and one's flat water. One water has no structure. So they're made of, say, H2O, but one's crystalline and one's not, and one's more coherent and one's not. So that's the analogy, is that you can have, you know, lump of coal, or you can have a diamond, or graphite, somewhere in between, right? I mean, you have different. So it's not what the biochemistry that makes them different. It's their structure that makes them different. Their structure, coal, graphite, diamond, right? Their structure makes it different. So that's the big aha for this week. Now, the second thing I want to share with you is that, is it possible, especially those of us that are highly sensitive, that make a lot of easy water, is it possible that we have information in the form of easy water in our bodies that are not necessary for us to have? It's irrelevant. We don't need to know that information. We're just storing it because we've sensed it. Okay. It's like pack ratting, which I'm really good at. Yeah. So it's like pack ratting information. Okay. You could have coherent information, but it's like having a jewelry box full of jewelry, and you don't even like brooches. You don't even wear brooches, right? But you got beautiful brooches in there because, well, you're pack ratting. So what we can do is actually delete the information stored in the water. And once that happens, then the water can be transferred to bulk water, and then you can pee or poop it out or whatever, sweat it out. So you don't have to carry as much water, and therefore you're processing, you don't have to process as much water, right? Because you're trying to process it quickly. And what I've been doing is drinking a lot of water and bone broth and not eating as often, not eating as much either. And that tends to make the energy system much more, for me, much more efficient. So I can still do skating and CrossFit and, you know, all this kind of physical activity, be super busy, but not have to rely on food for that energy, which then makes me swell because it's too much, you know, too much processing required. So see what resonates with you in this space, and see if that's something that you want to try for yourself if you have ascension swelling. If you do not have healthy habits, then, you know, definitely get a medical doctor or a healthcare practitioner to just check in and make sure it is safe for you to do what I am doing before you do it, okay? Because I'm not your doctor. And unless you work with me one-on-one, we do testing and all that kind of stuff, I'm not comfortable blanket just telling everybody they should do what I do, okay? So I'm just going to put that advisory out there. So what do we do to delete the information, okay? So you can do a Topican healing to delete the excess information you don't need, okay, that which is stored in water. What you can do first before you do that is just check in and get a percentage out of all the structured water in my body, in my cells, in this body and timeline. What percentage of that stored information or codes is not necessary and is not for my highest and greatest good to keep and get a percentage. I think I got something like 20% or something, or 11, I can't remember what it was the other day, right? So after you get that percentage, then you can do the Topican Healing Directive. This is, I now command that any extraneous, unnecessary codes and information stored in crystalline water in my body in this timeline be deleted and erased in the highest and best way, all directions of time, with ease and grace. Thank you. So your intention is to delete the information. It's sort of like having a hard drive full of pictures, and you went to vacation, right? And you took like all these like super amazing snapshots all over, Fiji or Hawaii or wherever you went, right? But there's quite a few photos that are bloopers, right? It's like, oh, I took 10 of those photos because 5 of them didn't really work out. I had my eyes closed, and then the dog was licking something or whatever, right? And it didn't really work out. So what you're doing is really deleting those less than optimal, in this case, pictures from your camera roll, from your computer, so it doesn't take up as much space. So I hope that makes sense to you. Yeah, a lot of stuff today. Yeah, and I don't think I've really revealed the whole, ascension swelling thing publicly anyway, to this degree of detail until today. Those that are in my, programs, the level 1 training program and the Light Warrior Revolution, they get to hear more about it because we do meet every month and talk about these things and, people's experiences. So yes, are there more details? Yes, there are more details on how to manage ascension swelling, but again, you do need to have some, skill sets to be able to ask those quality questions. So, obviously if this is something that you're struggling with, you need some help, you can definitely, connect with me and see if working with me is a good option. I don't do a lot of one-on-one healing anymore, but I do have certified Topican healing practitioners who take a lot of one-on-ones. There are, as of this recording, a couple of spots left in my Topican Healing Level 1 training program, the VIP Hybrid, where you get 3 25-minute sessions with me. These are very uncommon, let's put it that way. So I can only take, 10 or so every, 3 months or something like that. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. But so very few. So there's a couple spots left for that. So if that's of interest to you, you can definitely let me know. I can post a link near this video on how to do that, how to apply for an interview, synergy interview. And some announcements for this week. Number 1 is that back by popular demand, the Healing Faster Than the Speed of Light, how to release your pain, restore your vitality, and reboot your life, is going on this weekend. It's an encore replay, if you will. Some people did not or were not able to catch it before Christmas, so I decided to release it again for this weekend, and that shuts down midnight on Sunday night. But it is 2.5 hours, so it is a full-blown workshop. It was supposed to be a masterclass, but it turned into a workshop together with demos and mini healings and all that kind of stuff. But we had a blast. So if you missed it, now's the time to watch that. So I'll post that also near this, but just note that if you are watching this after whatever that date is, after the 27th, okay, you might find that the page no longer works. Just FYI. Okay, so that's announcement number 1. Announcement number 2 is that on Monday's Light Warrior radio show, I'm going to be interviewing a colleague of mine, Reese Thomas. And he is the CEO and founder of the Reese Thomas Institute for Energy Medicine and author of the book Discover Your Purpose, How to Use the 5 Life Purpose Profiles to Unlock Your Hidden Potential and Live the Life You Were Meant to Live. And his newest book called The Power of Purpose in Business. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Like, how do you transition from a job you so like, to a career that you're passionate about, that you love, and that you just wake up every day and go, yeah, this is so cool. Lucky me, I get to do that every day. So he's discovered that there are 4 levels of energy and creative power within us, but most people are just at level 1. And if you're lucky, maybe you're at level 2, which is using your chakras. But there are levels 3 and 4 where 80% of human potential exists, and many of us have not tapped in or tuned into that. So we're going to be talking Monday about that power of purpose in business, about that book, and about why, we seem to be fed a line when we're growing up, like, oh, you can be anything you want. And then when we get to an adult, it's like, no, you can't. Right? So if you're in that place where you're like, hey, I'm ready for a transition, how do I transition from a job I so like or even hate to right livelihood that I absolutely love, then definitely be on that show. So he's actually going to take some live calls. And so that's Monday at 12 noon Eastern on what's Monday? What did I say? Oh, 28th. Okay, so the 28th of December. And then if you can't make it live, there is a link that you can watch the replay. So that is super, super cool. And we have some exciting things coming up for 2021. So stay tuned. And if you're not on my email list, please get on my email list. Just go to KarenCan.com and check it out. There is a place where you can put your name and email address in and get a freebie from me. And by the way, the book bonuses, the over $1,000 of book bonuses for the Sensitivity is Your Superpower book, we're going to leave that up. We're going to leave that up. So if you go to KarenCan.com, you'll see right at the top the book. And if you click in there, you will be able to get your book bonuses. You just put your name and email in there and you'll get on the mailing list. And then you just put in your Amazon link where the order number for having bought the book, either the Kindle or the paperback of Sensitivity is Your Superpower, and then you can get those book bonuses, which include 3 of my own gifts. One is the Breatharian Blueprint, the other is the Heartline Harmonizer, and the third is the Sensitive Soul Rescue Remedy. So these are MP3s that you can listen to and receive the healing automatically when you listen to them. So definitely check that out as well. And yeah, so that is it for this week's Spiritual Medicine Digest. Thank you so much for joining me. Lots of love and Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you soon.